Hi. We think we're live. It happens every time when we do this on my computer. Hi, it is Friday. It is January 21st, and we have been at this. See? One, two, three, four. Boom. Going live on Facebook. January 21st. We are we are at 14 seconds in. It's always an adventure, right? So, welcome to day 21 of How Will You Bring More Life to Your 2022? And once again, we are in the midst of Mercury in retrograde, so anything is possible today, just like it was last week. There were folks who couldn't find us. There were folks who couldn't, it was just, and it's just part of the party, as I've started to say over these last few days. So, we've been talking for the last 20 days on how you can bring more life into your 2022. And most of our conversation has really been on you and how you sort through things and how you process things and how you um, really become more self aware and more just more skilled at walking through things that maybe you would not have walked through before. Um, Things that aren't necessarily fun. And as we said when I was in Virginia last week, um, if you don't go to the places that are scary for you, then you don't get practice in how to maneuver through those places. And what happens is because we all land in those places, once you get there, if you haven't ever been there before or don't like to spend time there, it's really hard to rewrite yourself. Years and years ago, I was teaching a class that I call Power Speak, and one of the things that everybody had to do in that class was do a 5-minute presentation. And so one of the women was doing a presentation on learning how to uh, um, use a kayak. You how to kayak, so you had to get in the kayak and how you sit in it. So the getting ready to get ready before you actually go out and kayak is to learn how to use the equipment. And so the first thing that she said was you get in it and you see how to sit. And the very first thing the instructor does is turn you upside down. And of course, I'm listening to the conversation and going, that's the last thing in the world I want to be. Over my, in upside down in a kayak, underwater, and because if you do that, you're going to drown. So, of course, that's one of those, whoa, you don't want to do that. And so, what she told us very calmly is that the instructor told them that you have to go underwater in a kayak when you're in training because you have to understand that you're safe. The instructor's right there, nobody's going to die, but you have to get used to the physiology of what happens when your kayak rolls over. And that's because when you're used to it, it's like, oh, the kayak's rolled over, we're just going to roll it back up. So I've never forgotten that story, and that's got to be 20 years ago. So, how I feel about it now and how I share it now with my clients is that you have to go places where you don't really want to go, that are uncomfortable for you, so that you can get skilled at being in places that are uncomfortable. It's just part of the party. So if you think about what the world has been like for the past 2 years, it's been a lot of disruption and uncomfortableness and places we don't want to go and things we don't want to change, and it's a challenge. So part of the work that we're doing with this conversation is to go places where you wouldn't normally go because I'm right here and I go in them all the time. I live in them a lot of the time and I work with my clients in them a lot of the time. So I can take you in those places that's like you're in the kayak and I'm standing right next to you and you're underwater, and it's like, we can learn how to right ourselves. So one of the things I thought I would do, because it's been 20 days talking just about us and ourselves. What would happen if we started talking about us in our interactions with other people? Because you have to be self-aware when you're in your interactions with other people, or it gets really messy really fast, doesn't it? And so what I thought I'd do is take one a day and just look at some places where we could get stuck and see how to unpack them. So I invite you, if you have some places in relationships, whether it's professional relationship or business relationship, that you wish, sorry, personal or professional, um, that you wish somebody would help you unpack, this is where we can do that. And I think it would be really fun because it's part of the work I do with clients. And now we're doing it in front of the whole world. So for the first situation I thought would be fun to unpack is I was talking to a client last week, and one of the things that she went through was she said to me, "Have you ever had a fight with somebody on email?" I thought, what a great question. Yeah, have you ever had a fight with somebody on email? So here's how it works. Somebody sends you an email, and we send emails for everything, and we think emails are like conversations because there's so much of them all the time. And so we send something in an email that really ought to be a conversation. And then we miss that little detail. It's always the little details that get you, right? So we miss that little detail that this is pick up the phone and call the person because we're texting, we're emailing, and that's where we're living our lives. Some things actually really need to be spoken about, and it might not be the phone, it might be let's do a quick FaceTime, just a personal connection. One of the things that's happened in the world is that uh, we don't say a person who anymore. We say a person that. And so that shows up in our conversations with people because we're texting all the time. As long as it's not about anything important, we text all the time and it works. It's for invitations or details or or here's a shopping list or if you're getting groceries, please don't forget this. It, email and text works awesome. But for a real conversation that requires a response, sometimes we miss that detail. So apparently, he got an email from somebody with something that they were really excited about. Now, he was in the midst of a big project, and his colleague was really excited about something, and the other guy wanted him to join. And how he reported it to me was he was kind of like, this guy is an important professional colleague. I care about him, and I'm excited that he's having this great time. But really, I've got so much on my plate right now, there's not much I can do. So, because he cared about the person, he actually forwarded the email as he was requested to do to one person and copied the sender. And apparently, he didn't do it well. He didn't do it right, or he missed something, or he said something that he wasn't even aware of. And the other guy shot him an email really quickly and said, "How could you do this? This is a big project of mine, and how could you misunderstand me so badly?" And the guy was like, as he reported it to me, was, you know, I've got time for one more email. I can send him an email that says, look, here's my intention. Here's what it worked out. Sorry if I didn't do it well. Good luck. Really, this is the best I can do. And he thought it was done. Like, okay, that's done. And remember the other day when we were saying when you have an interaction with somebody, you think in your head, okay, so we're going to have this conversation. I'm going to say this. They're going to say that. Then I'm going to say this. Then they're going to say that. And it's all happening in your head. Well, apparently this is what my client was doing on email. It's like, okay, here, I'm going to handle this. It's going to be done. The next email that came from his colleague was a huge blow up. I mean, just took him by surprise. And so what we were talking about was, okay, so A, the relationship is a professional one and someone that you would like to continue to still speak to. And so there's some unpacking that we need to do. So I thought about the things that we've been talking about. Are you safe? Is this good? Because if you're not safe and it's not good, you can't even get here and think about what you want to do. So when we unpacked it, there were a couple of things that we were talking about that I thought would be really fun for our conversation because it connects directly with what we've been doing. And that is, first, understand what I think we've all forgotten in all the chaos and disruption of the last 2 years, because all of us, so many of us are remote, so many of us are having so many conversations that are important on email or on text or in ways that don't really lend themselves to a personal conversation. And all of us, myself included, can get stuck. So that's number one. Totally normal. It happens to everybody. We're not bad people for having this happen to us. That's number one. Number two, when we give a message, between two people like we're doing right here, you get 100% of the message. You get the tone of voice, you get the words, and you get all the nonverbals like the eye contact and, just the everything that you can see, everything that you can hear, and the words. So 93% of your message isn't your words. But when you're emailing somebody and it's an important conversation, they only get the words. So 93% of what they would have gotten in a regular conversation, they're not getting. It's so easy to misunderstand. Once again, totally normal place to get. So 93 of your message percent of your message is lost if you're just sending an email. And if your message is, fax or an invitation or something quick, who cares? You just need the words. But when it's something, I need something from you, or I need your help, or would you, it's kind of hard and easy to get stuck. So then you look at the relationship. Who is this person to you? This guy was a colleague who my client really respected and felt really bad about having this breakdown. He was trying to figure out what he should do. My recommendation to him was, if you could do anything, what would you do? And he said, I'd call him. Okay, so call him. In other circumstances, let's just say the relationship was different. I said call him, and when he called him, they worked it out. And they laughed about it when it was over. So such an easy fix, and we don't think about it because we're like, well, how did this blow up? And we have everything else on our plates. So my client called his colleague, and they worked it out. But he learned something, and so I think they won't do that again. But let's just say you don't have that kind of relationship with a person. The next thing you could do, if this is somebody who's important to you that you don't have that closer relationship with, you could remember, I'm sorry, I don't know, I need help with this. And you don't have to use I was wrong, because that's not what's required here, but I'm sorry, I didn't know, I need help. And then in an email, you could say, let's have a phone call. Let's do a quick FaceTime. Let's have a real conversation and unplug this, unpack this. So, and the third thing is, well, okay, so what if it isn't a good friend of yours? What if it isn't somebody that you want to continue talking to? What if it's not those kinds of relationships? And that's where it gets interesting. That's where you actually have a choice. So that's where you have to decide, well, what do I want to do with this? And once again, we've sort of been doing this work, and we've said some of these things, so I want to connect it to this interaction with another person. Number one, what I've come to understand, and what I share with my clients, is that everything that happens to us, even in relationship, is about us. I know, big sigh. Now, why is that true, Maya? Why isn't it about the other person? Because clearly they were being a jerk. I know. Remember the part where, and I just had this last week when I was working on my project, so it's really fresh for me. So when you're pointing at somebody else and what they did and what they said in that email and all that stuff, well, there's three fingers pointing back at you. So, and the other person is either bucket one, which not about you, whatever they do, whatever they say, it's not about you, it's bucket one. Or if you have a relationship with them, you can talk to them, hence make the phone call or the FaceTime, so you can influence their understanding of what's happening with you. And if they're in relationship with you, they'll probably listen and be relieved. But mostly, it's really about bucket three, which is how you're experiencing this situation in the moment, how you're experiencing this conversation in the moment. So, have you ever had a conversation with somebody where you were really tired, or you were really stressed, and you really wanted to listen, but you really couldn't, and you said things that you thought later, why did I even say that? Well, mostly that happens to us because we're not taking care of ourselves in the moment. So that happens to us in emails as well. We've got so many things on our plate, all these tasks, all these details. A personal email comes through and we treat it like a task. One of the things that I learned from having this conversation with him and thinking about the work we've been doing for the past 20 days is self-awareness never goes away. Self-awareness is one of those things where we have to pay attention to what's going on around us. And that is what allows us to make any changes that we need to make. So everything we've learned to do in our whole lives, we can do automatically. Otherwise, life would be just too boring having to figure out over and over and over, how do I brush my teeth? How do I put my hair up? How do I tie my shoes? Everything we learn goes automatic. which means it goes unconscious, which means all of us do stuff that we're not even paying attention to, that we don't even realize, and it helps us to get stuck. So the thing that came out of this conversation with my client is that when we're engaging with other people, that's kind of like a trigger for us to pay attention. And in relationships that work, in relationships that matter, us paying attention actually makes a difference. So to go back to the email and go back to the things that we missed, communication really happens face to face, or even like you and I are communicating right now. Even though I can't see you, I feel you. I know you're there, whether you're watching this live or in the replay. Whether I can see your responses or whether it's just one of those Mercury in retrograde where it just feels like it's just me here and I have to just trust that you're there. All of those things are part of our dialogue. I'm imagining you there and you get the whole message. The other piece of it is that when we decide to pay attention, we actually can learn more things. We actually can change things and update things that need to be changed and updated. And then they'll go back and be unconscious again. So we'll unconsciously get an email that's got something personal in it, and we'll go, oh, nope, yeah, I remember what happened last time, and I'm going to do something different. So unconscious and conscious works for us when we know how to play them. Everything we know how to do is unconscious and automatic. All of us, all the time. Have you ever gotten to a new neighborhood when you just moved in and you have no idea like how to get to your house? Now, usually that only happens once or twice, and often that happens to us when we're little kids and we moved and we don't know where our house is because we don't have a roadmap in our house. Have you ever, on the other hand, gotten home from a late night and not even realized how you got into your driveway? Oh my God, how did I even get here? On the one hand is conscious looking because you don't have the map. On the other hand is you've got the map and your car knows the way home. So that's conscious and unconscious. And when you know how to play those two, it really affects the communication that you have with other people and the way you can engage in dialogue with other people. So, email, not so good for conversations. Have a phone call, in fact, if they're your friend, just call them. If they're not that relationship with you, invite them to have a conversation. And if it's not that kind of relationship, it's kind of like you have to decide, where do I want to go with this? Maya Angelou has a quote that I often use. It's called, when people show you who they are, you need to pay attention. That's mitigated by the fact that when people show you who they are, that's your version of them in your experience. So you really have to pay attention. You really have to get conscious. Is this something that happens all the time? This person is sending emails like this to me all the time and not listening to me all the time, and there's no way I can get out of this? Sometimes that's the relationship or the conversation you need to just let go. I had a circumstance, probably a month ago, where there was an email that came through to me that after a series of interactions on emails, I thought, you know what? There's no way to answer this. I'm not, no harm, no foul on the person. I can't answer this. And so either I'll hear back from them or I won't. But I had to be willing in that moment to be conscious about the fact that it wasn't a phone call. It wasn't that kind of relationship. And it was so out of the norm that it wasn't good for me. So I had to let it go. So once again, I hope that what you're watching everybody has a choice. There's no one right way to communicate with folks. There's no one right way to handle a situation. This situation on email could be handled 5 or 6 different ways, depending on where you are and who the other person is. So how do you bring more life to all of your conversations, no matter what is happening? Go back to paying attention to what you want and what you're willing to do to get it. And so the piece about communication with other people, that was the hardest for me to learn and has been the most juicy and most useful and most powerful for me to use, is that Every conversation we have with anybody, every relationship we have with anybody is based on our experience in the moment. And how aware we are of our experience in the moment is going to make a difference with how we interact with the people that we're interacting with. That's the reinvention. The reinvention is when we do the work on us, it actually shows up in our relationships. When we are taking care of ourselves, getting enough sleep, having our breakfast or having our lunch or making sure that we're well fed, moving around, when we feel good, our energy is good, our relationships are good, even with people who are difficult. When we're not taking good care of ourselves, it's really hard to be in dialogue with others because what happens is that our, I want to say unease, I don't know if that's the right word, but that's the word that's coming to mind. Our unease with ourselves actually shows up in our relationships with others. So those of us that are raising families and home, we're working from home, we're living at home, our kids are at school, at home, and we're all just, we have those days when we just want to, I just read this in an article in the Atlantic, we just want to go outside and scream. There were people in New York City who, there was 20 of them, and they just actually met together at 7:30 at night, and they all stood outside and screamed together. Because that's the only way they could actually feel like they were in any kind of control of anything in the relationships that they had. So I'm not outside screaming. I hope you're not either. And I hope that one of the pieces of communication and conversation that you're getting from this conversation is that when you want to bring more life to a conversation, you have to bring more life to you. And that's an ongoing job, like all the time. Like I wish I could tell you that you just did it once and it was handled and you didn't have to worry about it again. Like, okay, I got more life, I'm good, what else you got? What happens is that it's one of those things, and I can tell you this now because we've been at this for a while. I didn't want to tell you this right up front because it's, kind of daunting, really. Every day you have to pay attention to how are you? How can you bring more life to you so that you can bring more life to other people? So, top 3 things I want to leave you with this is number 1, every conversation you have is about you. Every conversation I have is about me. It's not about anybody that listens to me. I know this is like, I hate to mention it, but I have to mention it. So every conversation I have is my best. Every conversation you have is your best in that moment. Even if it's not perfect, even if it doesn't work out right, it's what you have in the moment. And so the more you can give yourself in the moment, the better your conversations show up, the better your conversations are, the more understanding you have, the wider bandwidth you have for people who aren't like you or who don't agree with you or who seem to not like you. So that's number 1. The more life you bring to you, the more life you bring to everything. Number 2, I want to invite you to look around now. You've been with me for a while and you know some things. So I invite you to look around for the rest of the day and think about the conversations that you're having with people and think about how much life are in those conversations. Maybe there's a lot. Maybe you're feeling great. It's a gorgeous day here in Northeast Ohio. It is beautiful. The sun is shining on the snow. The sky is blue, and it's just gorgeous. The sky would look like the Mediterranean if there wasn't snow on the ground. So if you're having a fabulous day, odds are high your communication and your conversations are fabulous. If you're having a tough day, how's that showing up in your conversations? And the reason I invite you to do that is because everything goes right back to bucket 3. Nothing we can do about those conversations except add more life to ourselves. And number 3, I invite you to have a conversation with yourself about where are the places where it's really, really hard for you to bring more life to yourself. Here's what I mean. Sometimes when you're really tired or really stressed or really in a situation that is not working for you and you don't really know how to get out, it's really hard to think about life. It's really hard to think about the bright part. I'm always all about the bright part. Somebody asked me the other day, what matters? Like, why does the bright part even matter? And like, who cares? And what I believe with all my heart is that when it's really dark out in the world, in your life, light really matters. And a little teeny tiny bit of light actually looks much brighter when it's surrounded by darkness. Like when there's a lot of light around, if you just have a little light, it almost gets lost in all the light. But when it's really, really dark, that little light actually shines brighter than anything. So, this third thing is about inviting you to look around at the places in your life that don't feel very bright, don't feel like they have a lot of life in them, don't feel like they're really working for you, and see if there's anything that we've done, especially that bucket three is where you can do anything you want. What small light, what small piece of life and joy could you bring yourself? The other day I was having a really tough day, and I said to somebody, if money were no object and I could be anywhere and travel anywhere, I'd be in the Mediterranean right now. And she said to me, well, what can you bring about the Mediterranean to your life right now? I'm in Northeast Ohio. It's January. So I realized that there was one thing I could do. I'm going to show you what I did. You see this picture behind me? That's one of my favorite pictures in the whole world. It just brings me peace and grace. It's that easy. A little bit of light. It's so easy. One little tiny thing. Every time I look at that phone, I just feel joy. So I'm inviting you to do one small thing. If money was no object, if everybody loved you, if you were happy every day, if your work was amazing, what would be true for you? And even if those things aren't true for you now, like I'd be in the Mediterranean, I can bring that bit of light that's making a difference for me all the time. Oh, wow. So, this is our second to the last Friday. Today's the 20th, we only have 10 more days. So I thank you so much for watching. I thank you so much for your feedback. And I invite you to consider, what are some places in your world that you want to bring more life to that we haven't covered? Because, my life and your life reflect each other in lots of ways, and there's ways that they don't. So where are the places in your life that you would like to bring more life, more brightness, you want to change something up? Let me know, and we will make it so. I'm Maya Beatty, and I'll see you next time.